This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. John Pennington joined by Bob Hodge, Vince Ferrara, Ryan Callahan. We've been doing a number of videos here, putting them up one at a time where it's kind of post-spring, looking ahead to the fall. And I saw an interesting story from ESPN they just put up. And I thought it would be worthy of discussion. All right, they ranked the nation's top 25 classes of newcomers. Okay, now the way they judge it is they say this ranking is the top 25 groups of newcomers, recruits and transfers combined, based on who could see the most impactful immediate returns for 2025. Okay, so that has to play a role in it. Mm-hmm. Tennessee didn't go wild in the portal. We can decide whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. But factor those in when I tell you that in your top 25 this year, you had LSU number 2, Auburn number 3, Texas number 4, Ole Miss number 6, Missouri number 10, South Carolina number 11, Georgia number 14, Alabama number 15, Texas A&M number 16, Oklahoma number 19, Kentucky number 21, Florida number 23. Only 4 SEC teams did not get a top 25 class of newcomers, according to ESPN. That would be Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee.
Woof. You don't want to have anything in common with them. If
That's not the group you want to be in. Now, this is a projection. Who the heck knows? But, and we'll just throw this open for debate. We'll let people start the poo-pooing of it. Brian, you will be allowed to poo-poo first.
Yeah.
But it's not a great list to be on, or it's not a great list to be off of when you got 12 SEC teams that are all on there, and they're going to have more impact from their portal players and their freshmen than Tennessee is, especially when you consider the number of new starters Tennessee has. Apparently their newcomers aren't going to jump right in and start.
Well, a couple things about this. I looked at the list, and I still thought there were some questionable choices on here. Like Florida, for instance, is listed impact newcomers or impact transfers. Harrison Bailey was mentioned as one of them, who's going to be like a backup or number 3 quarterback for them. Former walk-on at one stop. And spent a little bit of time at Tennessee a few years ago. Yeah. According to one site, not 24/7 Sports. But anyway. But regardless, some teams are getting a little more credit than others for their additions. So I wouldn't agree with everyone's top 25, but I will say this Tennessee not being included in this ranking to me is more of a reflection of the fact that they didn't go portal crazy. It's more of a reflection of Josh Heupel's approach to roster building and roster management than it is saying that Tennessee failed this offseason. Now, we've talked about it. They could have used another impact receiver, probably, depending on how you want to approach that position. They could have used another starter at safety after losing Jacoby Thomas. So they had a couple positions they could have addressed more heavily.
Could have replaced Larry Johnson on the offensive line, too.
Yeah.
Easier said than done without a starting job to sell. And how much you're going to pay for a backup offensive lineman at the end of the day.
Okay. I'm just saying, would you not want one? I'm getting at it.
Sure,
Maybe easier said than done. I get that.
Yeah.
But you could say that on a lot of these spots.
Yeah.
You know, if you had $2 million, you could have gotten the receiver from Syracuse if you wanted it. But it's easier said than done.
Another example, how many teams would have stood pat and just said, I'm going with Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis as my top 2 running backs? A lot of teams in that situation might have gone and said, let's go get one of the top backs from the portal. In this day and age, that's how a lot of people approach it.
They did go get Star Thomas, but he's considered the number 3 guy.
Probably a 3 or 4 in Tennessee's rotation. So, it's not an indictment on them, but it's just a reflection of their approach, and only time will tell if they're right to do it that way. But they've got more new starters than this list would suggest. But when you look at the newcomers, it's basically 3 new starters. David Sanders at right tackle, we assume, and the 2 offensive linemen they brought in from the portal, Wendell Moy and Sam Pendleton.
And Aguilar.
4.
Starting
and your new quarterback. Right. So you got 4 newcomers who are starters. And
is that a concern, though? Your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
You've got a starting quarterback, starting right tackle, 2 starting guards. But that's not enough to. So Aguilar doesn't score as highly as Harrison Bailey.
So that's the other part to me that made the list questionable.
They should have brought Bailey back.
Tennessee's getting less credit for Joey Aguilar than Florida seemingly is for guys like Harrison Bailey. So there were some things about the list that I would quibble with. And then some of it, other teams might have more opportunities to start true freshmen. Tennessee just hasn't done that a whole lot. David Sanders will be the only one probably, at least to start the year. So it's more about Tennessee's got more returning starters and guys they are promoting from within as opposed to them looking to the portal for new starters like Ole Miss does every single year. We knew they were going to be looking for a lot. So a lot of those teams you expect to be on that list. Tennessee, it's not shocking when you think about how they build their roster.
I totally agree. I think the list was definitely heavily weighted towards the transfer portal. You mentioned Indiana. Indiana has Holden Stays listed as one of their impact newcomers. So he was a good player at the University of Tennessee.
Although let's face it, last year there was all kinds of commotion when he came here too.
Yeah, for sure.
But it might be their starting tight end.
Holden Stays.
Right.
So, yeah, okay.
But their signing class isn't one of the highest rated signing classes. No. So where are they finding impact players from a class that maybe that definitely doesn't have as many future potential starters and star players as Tennessee's signing class has with their highly rated guys. So that my point is not a shot on Holden Stays. I'm just saying this is it's more heavily weighted towards the transfer portal guys that they're looking at can make an impact.
Kentucky, for instance, they didn't bring in as much talent across the board in their signing class and transfer class as Tennessee did, but they have way more guys who are going to be starting that they brought in. So they get on this list. Tennessee doesn't. I don't think that means Kentucky's incoming class is better. Just means they're going to be on the field and Tennessee's are going to be waiting to play.
Well, see, that raises the question with me. Is this list an indictment of Tennessee, not because Heupel does it a different way? Is it an indictment because, you've got 4 starters here from the transfer portal, and they don't look very good to us, so that's the reason we're downgrading you. Yeah. Because, see, to me, your starting quarterback, and it said the word when you read that, impact, how much impact he's going to have an impact. Now, it may be the same impact as a meteor falling into the backyard. It's a big old smoking hole, but he's going to have one hell of an impact.
That was his nickname at every state, big old smoking hole.
So to me, I'm just wondering, is it more of an indictment, not that you didn't bring in enough? Maybe it's an indictment of who you brought in, and we just don't think they're very good.
I think so. I mean, Ryan, you talked about potential starters that you can get out of this class. I think they're relying on what they're rated in terms of the portal, and that's where you're looking at, and that's where a lot of the frustration for the fans comes is, well, why aren't we going and getting the highest rated guys? Like, why didn't we go get Zachariah Branch, who went to Georgia from USC, and those kind of star players? So that's where I think it highlights that, and that's where it kind of piles on to some of the frustration in terms of what Tennessee's done in the portal.
Yeah, and I think those are legitimate questions.
Yeah.
I mean, now, granted, he's choosing, and he's always chosen, to be more high school recruit targeted, as opposed to building my whole thing through the training. Lane Kiffin, he's not. As a matter of fact, if you were doing the diametrically opposed guys, with the exception of Dabo Swinney, who's way out on a limb by himself, Kiffin and Heupel would be at the ends of the spectrum. They'd be leaning toward the end of the spectrum. And that's because one's got more money to go out and get high school recruits, I suppose. One finds it more financially satisfying to go out and, or financially feasible to go out and get a few transfers each year. You could make the, I mean, you look at Ohio State, we did this last year when everybody talked about their $20 million roster. Yeah, but everybody on that defense had been there 5 years. I mean, it was a very veteran, they had recruited most of those guys, but they sprinkled in a few.
I think it was like 10 total transferred, but like 5 were really impactful.
There
Texas
you go.
was the same way.
There's the big thing.
Yep.
Yes, they got, it was mainly recruiting, and then they sprinkled in. But man, the sprinkling, those are some good sprinkles.
Caleb Downs, the quarterback that led you to a
and I think it's fair to say, are Tennessee sprinkles as good as they should be or could be?
2 things have happened this year that would impact their ability to crack a list like this even during a year where you're not bringing in a ton of starters. One, they made a conscious decision. Mike Matthews nearly entered the portal. We've got talent that we think needs to be on the field. We're going to make a bit of a shift here, not a complete 180-degree shift, but a shift, and say we're going to double down on our youthful talent and put it on the field. And so that's happened. 2, we don't know how much of their money that they might have had to spend this offseason and maybe be more active in the portal, how much of that was tied up in giving guys raises this offseason, like Jermod McCoy, who was probably not making nearly as much last year as he is this year.
Right.
Things like that. Ricky Gibson, who wanted money because Jermod McCoy got money.
Yeah, so those two things work together to maybe keep you from going in the portal and getting a Zachariah Branch. Not to say they couldn't have gotten him, but they clearly had a point where they said that's not worth it to us.
Don't you think Ohio State faces that? Don't you think Oregon faces that? They're good guys. They have good players too that aren't just sitting there and going, you know what, I could get a raise, but I'll be a nice guy and stay. I'm guessing they're doing it too. It's just other people have figured out. I don't want to get into the GM thing.
Yeah.
Because that may make a difference, may not. Who knows? But I'm not trying to shoot holes in the defense.
Yeah.
But there are questions you can ask. It's like I'm sure everybody's facing the same things Tennessee's facing right now.
Mm-hmm. And there's a fair case to be made, Georgia being on that list, for instance. I mean, that's a
And
program that's never hurting
14th,
for talent. Yeah.
14th on the newcomer list.
And that's what Tennessee fans, I think, see. They're like, well, Georgia's never hurting for talent, but they're always still trying to go out and get impact transfers. Why are we not doing the same thing? And I understand where that's coming from. Again, time will tell if Tennessee's approach this offseason was right. I think you can certainly poke holes in what they did at wide receiver. You can poke holes in maybe not going out and getting another pass rusher to replace James Pierce. There's a couple things you could pick apart if you wanted to. But for the most part, I think they did what they had to do to sort of manage the money along with giving guys opportunities. And we'll see how it works out. But that's why they're not on the list this year. I think it's kind of a bit of a transition year maybe in terms of their overall approach.
It's interesting because we said this on the show Sunday, or I said it, that I'm looking at this as more of a, sorry for the yawn, I'm looking at this as more of a rebuilding kind of a year, the transition year. I keep pointing back to 1994, which, you lost Nico in the spring. Mm-hmm. Tennessee lost Jerry Colquitt 7 plays into the season. Mm-hmm. Your season's blown. So now you're going to have to go to Todd Helton, who was a baseball player, Brandon Stewart,
then
and Peyton Manning.
Him.
Yeah, Manning and Stewart were both a pair of freshmen, and nobody knew who was going to be the better guy there. Fans booed Peyton Manning because they wanted Brandon Stewart. So you just didn't know. But by the end of the year, it had all come together. It had all clicked. You thought, okay, this looks pretty good for the future. Next thing you know, they're 45-5 over the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. All right. But as soon as we went to break, I made the comment, I'm thinking that's what you're aiming for. I think you said it off air. So, yeah, but now with the portal, you're not going to be able to keep any of those guys. You didn't say it like that. That's my negative take on it.
Yeah.
You would have said it much more positively. But your gist was, how can you? They're all rebuilding years. So when we say, I'm taking what you threw at me and I'm throwing it back at you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great point. If it's a transition year, transition to what? How is next year not going to be a transition year?
Yeah.
Can you ever afford to just have a transition year? Or should it just be, we're throwing every dollar we have at it?
We reinvent the wheel every
year.
Every January.
Coaches used to kind of build it out and game out, okay, what's my starting lineup going to look like in year 2 and year 3?
How you recruit and everything, yeah.
Now I don't know if you can do that as much because you don't know who's going to be willing to stick it out, who's not, who's going to disappoint, who's not. And if they disappoint, they may be gone in 1 year. So there's so much that goes into this. And beyond that, I think the point I was also making too, this year, we don't know what the transfer portal is going to look like next year because if this revenue sharing thing goes through, there may be more money on the transfer market available than ever before, and that might entice more players than usual to go in the portal. So there's a perception, a thought out there that it might be the wildest offseason we've seen yet in this NIL and transfer portal era, that could cause Tennessee problems keeping these guys.
Yeah, one would hope that it could hurt Tennessee keeping these guys, but you would hope they would be able to go out and grab it because Ohio State can keep their guys, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But once the revenue sharing kicks in, I don't want to go completely off topic here, but once revenue sharing kicks in, hopefully you'll have players who are more signed in with their NIL deals, and it's not, even though you've got the portal needs to be somehow corralled.
You may have to do something every 2 years, but it's not
the whole team every
6
year.
Months.
Yeah.
Every 3 months, every 4 months that you're having to go in and talk to your own players again.
Yeah, well,
so maybe that settles down.
Yeah, will revenue sharing slow eventually? Any of the first portal would be crazy, but would it slow it down going forward? Or are we just looking at, this will ramp it up more going forward? I would hope that schools will start signing NIL deals that lock you in, but I don't know that you can.
Here's the thing with that. It's technically revenue sharing, not really an NIL deal. So you're not even going to – I don't even know that there's going to be contracts in the same way that there has been with NIL deals.
Yeah. They'll be audited, it sounds like. Yeah.
So there's going to be some differences here. And the key to what you're talking about, getting rid of the second portal window, which coaches very much want to do. So if they get it down to one portal window, that'll help with some of the craziness. But, either way, Tennessee may be more active in the portal next year, but it may be out of necessity if some of their own guys choose to leave.
Well, just to bring it back to the list, because of that year-to-year volatility and fluidity – that's why a list like this makes sense to be about 2025 impact. Even though it still counts a lot of freshmen, you have to look at it that way. And it's on paper. We can debate it. It's all going to play out in the end. But you can't go long term because who knows what anybody's roster is going to look like.
And I will say the teams at the top of this list, I heard LSU, I heard Auburn.
It's Oregon,
South
LSU,
Carolina.
Auburn,
Now-
Texas, Texas Tech.
Now, Oregon and Texas are outliers here because those are already good teams
Yes.
that are getting stronger. That's what worries you. But the LSU and Auburn, that makes perfect sense because those are SEC teams with tons of resources and holes to fill, and they were disappointed with how last season went. So that's usually what you're going to see. But yeah, teams, if I'm a Tennessee fan and I see Oregon and Texas at the top of that list coming off playoff appearances, that doesn't make me feel great because I'm thinking that's what we should be doing.
Well, let's see. Oregon number 1, then LSU and Auburn, Texas. Texas Tech came into money this year.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody died and left them all kinds of money. Ole Miss, which was
They live in the portal every year.
it
So
was verge of the playoff last year. Ohio State, right back.
Yep.
Miami, Michigan, Missouri. Surprised by the Missouri.
Missouri,
Yes,
another
Missouri,
program.
Missouri seems to be and Texas
And-
Tech are the ones that
Outliers.
are outliers.
See,
Well,
now,
Missouri and South Carolina are 10 and 11 on this list.
Missouri had a high-profile departure, Williams Winery. I wonder if getting some of that money off the books and going out and trying to replace him, might have played into that.
Yeah, you got to get the money off the books. That's something.
Well, not
I'm into college sports and talking about that.
not getting it off the books, but saying because you had that money freed up,
Yes, you
get
could
to
go get
spend
other
it.
guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
laughing at the idea that we now have to talk about, okay, well, you got to clear this money off the books. before you
Yeah.
can sign.
like the NFL and pro sports. But Michigan is probably a little bit of Bryce Underwood, too, because of the quarterback, how highly rated he was in that class as a 5-star. So most of it is portal, but there are a couple of those exceptions.
Interesting takes.
And worth noting, we do a combined overall ranking on 24/7 Sports to take into account transfers along with the high school
I mean, a
class.
roster grade.
It's
is that what you're
well,
talking
it's an overall class ranking where we
Okay.
combine the transfers with high school, but it's not based on 2025 impact. It's based on overall talent more so. Tennessee, I think 12th in our rankings of overall. So it's more of
They get you
a
to
positive,
12.
more of a positive reflection of the long-term potential of this class. But when you look at the immediate impact, again, might be diminished compared to other teams.
about? All right, very good. Ryan Callahan working in. One last plug for 24/7. You can find him at GoVols247.com. You can find Vince Ferrara here at the Sports Animal. Me and Bob, we just hang out. We'll see you next time on the Sports Source Digital Network. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. We appreciate it all. It all helps the channel. And thanks to Hearthside Bank for supporting it all. See you next time.